What is up, Scrub Fam? I am here with another video. This is going to be a format discussion video because the game has changed, as you can see by the picture down below. But anyway, before I get started in this video, let me give a shout out to my sponsor, Beard Collectibles. Alex Pastrana is the best shop owner on the planet. If you're looking to buy your sealed product for World Martial Arts Tournament, which I recommend you do because there's a lot of sweet cards, you do it through Beard Collectibles and Alex Pastrana because he's the best shop owner on the planet. You feel me? Alright, other than that, if you want to check out the Patreon, just go to patreon.com/3x3pro. That'll be down in the description, as well as a link to be able to get yourself a 3x3 Productions t-shirt. Enough of the plugs. Let's get into this format discussion. So, before I do that, shout out to Jordan Markle, came in second place at Ohio. He had a pretty bad beat in second game because he flipped double blue, and then his opponent just drew every single 10k in his deck. I was watching it. It was pretty brutal. His opponent drew all of his boost attacks, all of his Unbreakables, all of his Sensu Beans, all of his Raging Spirits and Gohans, and just Jordan fell way behind because of his energy situation, and he even had to plan it on turn 2 to get a Bardock, so he was just way behind and couldn't put any pressure, and so he inevitably ended up losing that game. Shout out to Jose Mercado, who got his invite this weekend. One of the Patreons, one of the 1337 Patreons. We did a playtesting session this week. He felt really good about it. We put him on Red Blue SS3, and he came in 6th place at Ohio, which is impressive. So shout out to Jose. Shout out to Stefan from the Patreon as well, who also got his invite this weekend. Shout out to Daniel Bivens, who got his invite. There was a lot of people that got their invite this weekend that followed the Patreon. So that was amazing to see. Also, if you look at the top 32 deck list from Ohio, you'll see that there was a few deck lists that were heavily influenced by, I think, my last YouTube video, which was awesome to see. So in general, format was in a really healthy spot as we ended it, and I think we're in a really good place to be carried over into the next format. And so I'm excited to talk about that with you today. So the first thing I want to talk about is the changes to the game that occur. So number one is the death of action economy, and this is a really good thing because the reason why the game changed so much, and the reason why people dislike the game so much is because the game changed from being just about energy management and card advantage to now you introduce this third element to the game, which is action economy. So how many things that you can basically do on a single turn. And I don't know if you're familiar with the Panini Dragon Ball Z card game. The game spiraled out of control a bit because it's like it all came down to just how many actions you could generate in a turn. And once you became the best deck when it came to action economy, you just kind of overwhelmed the rest of the format, and it kind of warped the game in a way to where it all became about was stopping this action economy, which actually happened in Dragon Ball Super. So the reason why I was so accustomed to the format and I enjoyed the format so much is because I was already accustomed to just like action economy being really important. And so with Legendary Flute in the format, the way that it was the blue-yellow decks, the blue-red aggro decks, those decks just thrived off of being able to just produce a number of attackers using the same energy, so just producing more actions on a given turn, and they would overwhelm somebody because if I take my turn, I charge energy and I pass, and you take your turn and you do 6-7 attacks on a single turn, and I'm having to defend myself, the game becomes so compressed that I don't have enough time to develop my energy and then start playing my really good cards. And so that's why the format devolved into what it did, which is basically the best deck at generating actions versus the best decks at stopping the amount of actions from occurring. And then so that's how the format just kind of became. It was blue-yellow SS3 because it was the best deck at defending itself as well as producing the most action economy and didn't die Hurdergarn versus blue, mono blue, and blue-green SS3. And so that's how the format just became to be. And then you had other decks like Blue-Red SS3, which had a really good showing this weekend, who just preyed off of the fair decks, Mono Blue and Blue-Green. And so the format just became, it was all systemic of the Legendary Flute being in the format. Now that it's restricted to one, I can tell you that Blue-Yellow did take quite a hit from this. It's still a really good deck, but it's a deck now that if you're playing SS3, you're going to get to your third and fourth turn a lot more often. You're not going to be killing your opponent on turn 2 as often, and it becomes much easier to stop for those decks that are more fair. And because they just don't have to worry about so many actions on a given turn. I mean, they still have to defend a bunch, but not as many as would occur if Legendary Flute was still in the format. Also, with Legendary Flute leaving, it rids a removal for those decks. So those decks have a really hard time against some threats like Courageous Heart Yajirobe and Android 16. So Flute leaving the format leaves a lot of those decks kind of naked, and they have to play something like Dimensional Banisher Fu, or another card that I'll get to here later in the video when I talk about Risers from the past is, not having Flute really kind of hurts those decks. So anyway, so we go to the death of action economy 2. Back to our roots. Card advantage and energy management are king. These are the two most important things you can do as we move forward, and that plays into why the format is going to be very similar to what it was to an extent. So you're still going to have SS3 because SS3 is the king. It is the best at energy management, right? So it is use all 6 of your energy, untap 3 in your turn, use your energy defensively against your opponent, so you're getting used a total of 9 energy across the course of your opponent's turn and your turn, and so that makes it the king of energy management, right? And so you now have that battle versus the card advantage leaders, or the card advantage people, or the leaders that best manipulate card advantage. So Hurdigarn draws a ton of cards. Announcer leader draws a ton of cards. So those two leaders immediately step up, right? Because we're talking about the format being energy management versus card advantage. So you look at those two leaders. You look at androids, and the reason why androids are card advantage leaders is because not only because they awaken on 6, but mostly because they have something in their deck that strips away card advantage through Perfect Force Cell, and then also Mira comes back because Mira can do Cell Chain and has Mirror Chain. So again, like you have this battle that gets even more like uncovered, which is before it's like these decks existed, but now with the removal of action economy being something that was really important in the format, we now get back to that classic battle of energy management versus card advantage. And so I feel like we're going to get back to a really good place in the game, and I know that a lot of people still think that the game's not going to be fixed, but to be honest, there's nothing really wrong with the game. I think I had a really good discussion with Pat O'Neill today earlier. I talked about how Bandai really hit their stride in Tournament of Power, and they made one hiccup, right, which was Legendary Flute. That was a big hiccup, and Goten. I don't want to say is a mistake because I think Goten's a really neat card for the game. I just think that the use of swap is what makes that card so degenerate. But Flute was really the one thing that kind of just changed the game inevitably and enabled all these combo decks. And so, like, if you remove Flute from the equation, which what we're doing now, we're going to get to a much healthier place when it comes to the format in general. Yes, SS3 is going to be one of the most dominant leaders because he is the energy management king. But at the same time, as we saw even at Gen Con and leading up to Gen Con, was Red Blue Hurdigarn, these aggro strategies that can compress the game, are going to still be really good. And not only do they compress the game, but they can overwhelm with card advantage. I mean, Chris Welch, he was one of the pioneers for a slower red-blue Hurdigarn deck, and he didn't try and combo out on people. He hardly even used Legendary Flute. He just would play the game really slow, and he would defend his life total, and so Chain Zeno never really mattered because his life total was super low, and he always was ahead of SS3 on cards. So once he got to 4 energy, he was just able to grind SS3 out because of the Awakened ability. So like everyone's still kind of freaking out because SS3 is so good, but at the same time, we really just need to, put our thinking caps on instead of the helmet, and I promise you, we're going to get to a really good place in the format. Next, early risers from the past. So Courageous Heart Yajirobe and Iron Hammer of Justice get really good. The reason why they get really good is because Flute is gone. So these aggro decks, they can't deal with Yajirobe or Iron Hammer of Justice unless they play removal in their deck. And so that leads me to the third card on this page, which is Sun Goten Family of Justice. Family of Justice Sun Goten was already a really good card in the previous format because he had the ability to pick off Gotens and other threats in blue-yellow. But really, Family of Justice is going to be a great spot in those combo decks to kind of deal with these. Courageous Heart Yajirobe, Iron Hammer of Justice, Android 16. But in general, it's just going to fill a really big hole that we were missing, which is having that removal spot, which is what Flute gave us. So now, instead of being 0 energy, it's 1 energy for Family of Justice, but it's going to be highly effective, and I think that this card is going to see a lot more play, both main deck and sideboard as we move forward. And then, of course, Iron Hammer of Justice. Blue-Green SS3 also becomes a really formidable deck as we move forward, because not only because it can play Iron Hammer of Justice in the main deck and thwart aggro decks instead of having to rely on something like Vegito, but at the same time, it can also play Yamcha, which the Yamcha 3-drop from World Martial Arts Tournament is very strong. So green-blue SS3 is going to be a really good deck. And then, of course, Courageous Heart Yajirobe. Any mono blue strategy, any blue X strategy, Yajirobe just is a great stopgap against those aggro decks. And so these are some cards that get really good with the removal of Flute and are really strong in this format. Next, we'll go into the most impactful leaders from the World Martial Arts Tournament. Jackie Chun, I can't stress enough, is really good. It's not just because he is a Shigesh leader, which he is, and he has access to some really powerful cards, which I'll go over in the next slide, but his ability to... He always gets plus 5k, so he's always a 20k attacker. He draws a card when he swings, of course, because he's awakened. But whenever he attacks a battle card, your opponent can't combo. So Jackie Chun, just with the combination of him and Nam, like, he's going to kill your opponent's battle cards, and it's not going to be an issue. So it's like what he lacks in, the overall energy management, right? Because he's not he doesn't get to untap 3 end of turn, but he is an untap 2 leader. He gets to make up for in the fact that he can clear a board relatively easily. And so Jackie Chun plus Nam plus Shigesh plus Goku and Oob, which we'll go over the next slide, like, That's a really formidable deck. It's a really formidable strategy, and so people are really sleeping on this already. And I already think it's one of the better decks in the format right now. And you really just need to start grinding games and get some games in with it because you're going to be pleasantly surprised. The other leader, of course, is Announcer. As I mentioned before, is one of the card advantage leaders. Announcer draws a ton of cards. Between Announcer, between the card that draws 2 cards when you have multiple World Martial Arts Tournament things in play, and the fact that it doesn't have energy requirements when it's doing, or specified costs when it wants to play its battle cards. Like, Announcer just gets to play all the great things from World Martial Arts Tournament, which there are a lot of them, and at the same time he's just the best card advantage leader coming out of the set, and so he's instantly a power player within the format itself. I'm not going to say if he's tier 1, but I will say that he's highly competitive and he's going to make a splash into the environment. I know that if I go to an event, which I plan on going to, I'm going to try and go to Atlantic City, and then I'll be in Orlando, Florida for the Orlando Regional. I already booked my flight for that. Very excited about that. But when that happens, I'm probably going to play either one of those 2 decks because I think that they're very good. And since I already have my invite, I get the opportunity to actually play something more fun / competitive as opposed to just spiking an event. So always excited about that. But in general, these 2 leaders are very strong. They're the best leaders coming out of the set. I do think that Feat Kamehameha is a very impactful card, as well as the Feat Kamehameha. So I want to pair that with the Universe 7 Goku leader from the Ultimate box because I think that's very strong because it's 15k plus crit. So if you just take that with that leader itself, the front side becomes a 30k crit when it attacks, and the back side becomes a 35k crit with double strike when it attacks. Pretty good. So I'm excited to test that as well. So reasons why you should play World Martial Arts Tournament leaders is because they get access to one of the most powerful things you can do for 3 energy, which is Test of Strength Son Goku and Test of Strength Oob. These cards are absolutely absurd. So tap 3 energy, right? Test of Strength Son Goku. When he comes into play, you get to play the Oob from hand, and then they both get 5k for the duration of the turn. When you play Test of Strength Oob and Son Goku's already in play, you get to choose 2 of your opponent's battle cards that are 20k or less, and then bottom deck them on your opponent's board. So you have the ability to basically, your opponent established, like, say they established like 2 threats on their turn, on their previous 1, 2, 3 turns, right? So, okay, I get to my 3rd turn, I play Test of Strength Son Goku, I play Oob, and not only did I just wipe your board entirely, so I bottom decked your threats, but I now have a 20k double striker and a 20k crit attacker, and they're on the board. And if I can protect the Test of Strength Son Goku, I can resolve multiple Oobs across the course of the game, which is just disgusting. And then if you play Shigesh, you Shigesh into play Son Goku and Oob for 0 energy, bottom deck to your opponent's threats, have 2 formidable attackers. You see where I'm going with this, right? It's very powerful, and it's, like I said, I'm almost in the camp of, you either have to play a card advantage leader like Hirudegarn, or you have to play something like SS3, or you're playing a World Martial Arts Tournament leader, because Test of Strength Son Goku and Test of Strength Oob are probably the best things you could be doing. It's an amazing interaction. It's very good that it's in the game, and I love that it's leader restricted. It only works with World Martial Arts Tournaments leaders, so shout out to Bandai for doing that. And then, of course, Announcer, Play-by-Play Pro. This card is very good. It's a negate when you need it to be, but oftentimes you're going to be using it for the other effect, which is basically if you have multiple World Tournament characters in play, it draws 2 cards when you play it. So, Pot of Greed, as everyone talks about, right? This is that, and it's very good, and it allows for the Announcer leader and Jackie Chun to draw a ton of cards, get through their deck, and just continue being able to defend itself and provide a pretty formidable board state with stuff like Test of Strength Son Goku, Test of Strength Oob. You have Nam for Master Roshi, for Jackie Chun, and then you have the 5-drop Goku and Vegeta for the Announcer leader. So again, these decks are very good. If you haven't started testing with them yet, you need to, because they're going to show up. I don't know if they're going to show up in Atlanta because it's kind of fresh, and I don't know if people are going to have the access to the cards in time. But in general, I think this is these are the big reasons why you should play WMAT leaders. Last slide, I want to go over a pick for Atlanta. So if I had to attend Atlanta and I had to play I had to attend Atlanta, I had to play a deck to get me an invite, and I had to use some of the cards from the latest set, this would be the 65 that I would consider. So the first thing that you'll notice is we have 2 Heroic Duo Videl. So this allows us to basically play almost like a Master Roshi level negate, which I'm a huge fan of coming out of the set. It's one of the best cards in the set just because it provides that to this deck. And then I'm not playing the full 4 in the main deck. I'm splitting with Pride and Justice Topo because the format is still, it's slowing down. So you don't need to play a full 8 1-cost negates. You can kind of get some value in there with the Pride and Justice Topo. So I'm a huge fan of splitting it there. We're playing 4 Intensifying Power Trunks and 3 Digging Deep to Awaken. We're making space for 2 Dark Duo Deborah. Deborah is insane with Chain Attack Zeno because of the fact that it strips the opponent's cards, right? So you strip 2 random cards from your opponent's hand, and then if you play Chain Zeno and Deborah hasn't been removed from the field yet, you'll basically erase Deborah's text, so your opponent actually never gets those cards back that you warped. So they have to shuffle up, draw a fresh 5, and they'll never get those cards again that you stripped them out of their hand from Deborah. So Deborah, very good card. I like having it in 2 spots in this deck. I don't think you need to play 3 or 4. I think 2 is a really good number to go along with your foreseeing hits. We're still playing 3 Kefla or Wifela because very good card. It's one of your main reasons to main a bit like cards to close out the game once you do a Chain Attack Zeno. And then we cut down on Raging Spirit Sun Gohans to 3 in the main deck since we don't have the presence of Flute anymore. You can play 3 and still feel really good about it. We still have our 4 Unbreakables to have 8 super combos. The deck is very similar to what it was before, but now you just get to add in those sweet cards that kind of just add, you know, additional defensive tools as well as some offensive power to the deck. And just the deck is very strong. Sideboard, we got 2 more Heroic Duo Videls. So if we're playing against aggro, what we'll do is we'll just side out 2 Topos for 2 Heroic Duo Videls because 1 cost negates are better than 2 cost negates in this matchup because they're still compressed. We have 2 Mafubas for the go big matchups. So anybody that's playing the barrier threats or they're playing Vegeta, you can use Mafuba as a way to stalwart them. Then you have 4 Vegetos again against aggro. So we kind of have to shift. You take out your Keflas and then you can actually, yeah. So you take out Keflas, you can take out the Bora, do what you need to do, make some space, and then put in your 4 Vegetos. And then now you'll be able to beat the aggro matchup. We have 3 Time Control Cronoa. This is strictly for decks that play Shigesh because Shigesh is going to come back better than ever now because I think Jackie Chun is going to make an impact on the format. So I think you need to have Time Control Cronoa. If you don't, you're just going to lose a lot of those games. Then we have 2 Dimensional Banisher Fu because blockers are really good now. Like, you know, Andrew 16, Courageous Heart Yajirobe, and we don't have access to Flute. We do want some sort of like catch-all when it comes to removal. Additionally, you're going to want Dimensional Banisher Fu in matchups where you're not going to be able to remove giant threats. So I think that card comes back into the fray. And then we have 2 Massey and the Mysterious Warrior. So if we play against Blue Yellow X deck, we have removal in the form of Massey and to be able to take out multiple cards on a given turn. So I think this deck is very good, both main deck and sideboard. So if you're looking to get ready for Atlanta Regional and you want to play some of the new cards, I think this is something you check out if you need to get your invite. Additionally, the other decks like Announcer, Jackie Chun, I think they're really good. But again, they kind of need some more time to flesh themselves out, and we still have to figure out what the format's going to look like as we move forward. But I think that this red-blue SS3 deck is a really good place to start if you're looking to get ready for this weekend, just because you can expect a lot of the major players to be the same, so mono, blue, blue-green, etc. But in general, I think this deck is very strong as we go ahead into the weekend. But otherwise, that is it. That is the format discussion. The game has changed. World of Martial Arts Tournament. I'm very excited about it. I appreciate everything you guys have done for me. Thank you so much for supporting the Patreon as well as supporting this YouTube channel. I'm going to continue to pump out content as we go forward. Deck profiles because we have tons of new decks to discover. We have more meta talks to do because we have events coming up as soon as this week. And in general, this format gets really, really exciting. But other than that, thank you guys so much. Again, Scrub Fam is best fam. DBS community is best DBS community. Thank you guys again so much. Okay, bye!